Imagine watching someone you love slowly disappear, while their body is still alive. My childhood friend Daniel and I used to peel gum from acacia trees and stick it on our notebooks as covers, and whatever was left we would happily eat. Those were simple and joyful days. But Daniel's life later became part of a heartbreaking story that his son Ethan Daniel once described with deep pain and honesty. This story is not about a stranger. It is about a man who, until recently, was full of life. Daniel was a cheerful and hardworking man. He went to work every day, met people, laughed, talked, and was a strong support for his family. Everything in his life seemed perfectly normal, just like any ordinary happy person's life. But then time quietly turned a page. At first, the change was so subtle that even Daniel himself didn't notice it. Sometimes his hands would tremble slightly, or his fingers would twitch for a moment. He ignored it, assuming it was nothing serious. He continued working and living his life as usual. People around him also didn't pay much attention to these small changes. But this was only the beginning of a long and painful journey. Slowly, that invisible grip began to tighten. Daniel's hands were no longer under his control. When he tried to lift a glass of water, his hands would shake uncontrollably. Even breaking a piece of bread became difficult. Tasks that once took only seconds began to take much longer. The involuntary movements grew stronger. His fingers began to curl, his muscles tightened, and his grip weakened. That was when he realized something was terribly wrong. He tried everything he could. He searched for solutions and held on to hope that somehow things would return to normal. But every effort ended in disappointment. Gradually, Daniel realized that his life might never be the same again. As the disease progressed, the outside world became a source of embarrassment for him. His muscles were constantly tense, and his body refused to stay still. When he stood up, his legs and torso moved uncontrollably, almost like a chaotic dance. Sometimes he would fall. He tried to stand still, but his body wouldn't listen to him. The curious and sometimes fearful stares of people made him feel deeply ashamed. The man who once loved walking and moving freely could no longer trust his own steps. Slowly, he withdrew from society and confined himself within the walls of his home. As his physical condition worsened, his personality also began to change. The gentle and calm man became irritable. He argued over small things, got stubborn, and often clashed with his family. But it was not his fault. The disease was slowly affecting his brain. His memory started fading, and emotions became difficult to control. Even while surrounded by loved ones, he felt alone. Eventually, life shrank to a single bed. This was not a sign of weakness or surrender. Daniel fought bravely for as long as he could. But the struggle had exhausted him. Now he lay in bed, yet even there he found no peace. His body never stopped moving. His hands, feet, neck, and torso constantly trembled, as if a storm was trapped inside him. When he tried to sit, his muscles tightened painfully. When he tried to speak, his tongue refused to cooperate. Words broke apart inside his mouth, leaving only unclear sounds. Soon, his condition reached a point where he could no longer recognize himself. He forgot his own name. He couldn't remember whether he had eaten or not. The people standing before him, his own children, became strangers to him. The faces that once depended on him for strength were now unfamiliar. The man who had once been so careful about cleanliness began relieving himself in bed without even realizing it. Winter or summer, day or night, it all felt the same to him. Joy and sorrow, celebrations and grief, everything lost meaning. It was as if he had left the world while still breathing. His mind drifted into a strange place where the same thoughts repeated endlessly. He would shout or repeat the same sentence again and again throughout the day. Even after eating a full meal, he would cry out desperately, "Give me bread. I'm hungry. Please feed me." His family would gently remind him that he had just eaten. For a moment he would look at them with empty eyes, trying to understand. He would fall silent. But moments later, the same plea would return, "Give me bread. I'm hungry." He could not remember that his stomach was full. All he remembered was a constant desire that never seemed satisfied. Slowly, he became like a living body without life, breathing, yet empty of the person he once was, completely dependent on others. Feeding him by mouth eventually became difficult. Food often went into the wrong passage, causing severe infections. To reduce his suffering, doctors inserted a feeding tube directly into his stomach. For a while, life continued this way. But one day, while bathing him, the tube accidentally got caught on something and was suddenly pulled out with a painful jerk. After that incident, the tube was never inserted again, and he had to be fed by mouth once more. During winters he often developed serious infections and had to be taken to the hospital. There, people did not look at him with sympathy. Instead, they stared with fear and confusion, as if he were not a human being but some strange creature. Those stares pierced the hearts of his loved ones like arrows. Years passed in this painful struggle. Then one day, something began to change again. But this time the scene was different. The body that had never rested for years, that had constantly trembled and moved, slowly began to grow still. The chaotic movements began to fade. But this calm was not a return to life. It was the silence before the lamp finally goes out. And then, the moment came when his body became still forever. This was not just the death of a man. It was the slow disappearance of his identity, memory, and dignity, taken away piece by piece. In the end, only a body remained, the man himself had already faded away. Moral lesson. Sometimes the greatest tragedies in life are not sudden deaths, but the slow fading of a human being while their loved ones helplessly watch. It reminds us to value health, compassion, and the precious moments we share with the people we love.